When he saw the flashing lights in his rear view mirror, Jack looked down at his speedometer. 73 he was doing in a 55-mile-per-hour zone. And darn, he thought, the third time this year. And after he had pulled over, he watched the policeman through his rear view mirror get out of the car and approach his. And he realized he recognized that man. He goes, that's Bob from up at church. In part, that made it more embarrassing. And in part, he thought, well, maybe he'd cut me some slack. But Bob didn't seem in the mood for any kind of chit-chat. And after Jack's best attempt, Bob went back, pulled out a pad, and started writing. Jack waited in the car for what seemed like a long time. And finally, Bob passed a little piece of paper through the window and drove off. Jack opened the paper, but it was not a ticket. Instead, it was a note with these words. Dear Jack, once upon a time I had a daughter. She was 6 when killed by a car, a speeding driver. The man got a fine and 3 months in jail and was set free. Free to hug his daughters, all 3 of them. I only had one, and I'm going to have to wait until heaven before I can ever hug her again. 1,000 times I've tried to forgive that man. 1,000 times I thought I had. Maybe I did, but I need to do it again even now. So pray for me. And be careful, Jack. My son is all that I have left. He signed it, Bob. Often there is stuff that we might know in our heads, but until we've experienced it, until we've been there, it's not really real for us. And sometimes when I am so moved by the compassion and kindness of you, I think to myself, I'll bet that was born of pain, and often of deep pain. For example, it has been said, when you bury a loved one, you feel like you're part of a club you never wanted to join, huh? But suddenly you get it in a way that you could not understand it before. And there is a compassion with which you reach out to somebody who's lost a loved one because you get it, because you've been there. In today's gospel, Jesus said, I was hungry and you fed me. I was naked and you clothed me. I was ill in prison. You visited me. And I'll bet whenever we did that, it was because we had somehow been there. And part of the challenge of this gospel is to learn to recognize those parts of us that are naked, the stranger, thirsty. And most of us can, I would guess, relate to being the stranger. We know what it's like to walk in a room or a church and wonder where you fit in, or even sometimes into our own homes after the incident, or sometimes what it's like to be a stranger to ourselves. We need to know that place in us, because when we do, we'll recognize that in each other, huh? And maybe you'd say, well, I've never been so hungry that I was weak and wondering where my next meal could possibly come from. But who here hasn't been hungry for meaning, for belonging, for love, huh? And when we name the hunger in ourselves, then I think we will see it in each other. And you might say, well, I've never been in prison. But who here has not been imprisoned, by those thoughts that just go and go that we can't escape from? or by those addictions that, while seeming to promise life, give us nothing, and yet we can't seem to break free. When we know our own imprisonment, then the compassion comes to those who struggle that same way. It's not like we have to do it, we don't do it because like, well, I have to. No, it's just, of course, what we would do. When we come to know that in ourselves, then we reach out to others. So when were you naked? Huh? When were you ill? When have you felt like the stranger, or were you hungry? We've got to be in touch, I believe, with that part inside of ourselves. Because when we're not, Jesus said, and we don't reach out to others, we are somehow banished. We've taken ourselves away from community. We're in isolation. We're no longer connected because we're not connected here to allow us to connect to each other. But when we know that in here, then we see it out there. And I believe that something of God happens right then when I name inside of my place where I am broken. It's almost as if there I meet God who takes me out to you when you are broken. Blessed are those brave enough to go inside and to name the truth of who we are, to be truly alive even to our pain, because then we might love. Today is the feast of Christ the King. I'm convinced that one of the reasons he is such a great king is because he knew what it was like to be hungry, to be the stranger, to be imprisoned. He knew it all. He'd taken on the fullness of our pain. And I pray that you and I will more and more be in touch with that inside of us as well, that we too might love like him, our great and crucified King, Jesus. Well, hello, buddy. How are you? Not so good, huh? What's the matter? They made fun of you? Oh, I'm sorry, Big Al. What? Why? 'Cause I'm blue. 'Cause you're blue? Okay, well, that's not very nice, is it? I'm sorry, Big Al, that people did that to you. Though, that might say something about the reading today about being a stranger. No one what? No one's stranger than me, huh? No, not that kind of strange. Big Al, what it's like when people pick on you or you don't fit in? Hard. I know it's hard. But I'll bet you'll keep your eyes open more now for somebody else. I bet you do. Because remember when your friend Timmy died and you were so sad? Aren't you extra kind now when somebody has a loved one die? I get it. Yeah, you get it. You see, Big Al, I think it's important to pay attention to those places where it kind of hurts inside, because then that helps us want to reach out to others when they hurt, doesn't it? Idea. Okay, that's good. All right, I'll tell them. Bye. Boys and girls, Big Al said that while we don't ever wish you would hurt, whenever it's hard to be you, listen to that. Because then God could use that to remind you to help others who hurt like that too.